I'm sitting in January 13th, 2022. Lewis says to me tonight something about he's got a lawyer friend that said that if I wanted to sue some Pfizer or some company, it would be like $10 million. And I'm like, really? I was like, and so now, what does it mean, Lou? Like, is that like real happens? And then, like, what are they going to ask me for? And what do they want from me? And what are they going to say to me? Like, how's it going to affect my children? Because it's enough, I suppose, for the rest of my life, but it's already affected my health that they didn't actually validate anything. So now that gets confusing in this new riche or new world or new whatever's arrived that's held me away from where I need to be. During this apparition, for which I absolutely hate everything about it, my son, today I went to the school, and there's a shroud around the school. I don't know what that's about. I have no way of inquiring about what it's about. I walk in the front lobby, not purposely, but if I do, there is a unfamilial security guard dressed in some NYPD costume, or school safety version costume at the front door. And there's international flags hanging on a rope on the inside of the school. On the outside of the school, it says that the school has in a big banner, says it's a showcase school. No way of knowing what that is. Then to the side of it, it says that they won some Apple award. There's some scaffolding in the school, and when I look around the scaffolding, I noticed a flagpole. I also noticed that the flagpole at the school, which is hidden behind scaffolding and some form of shroud on the brick building, does not have a United States of America flag flying. Also doesn't have a POW, MIA flag flying. That's confusing. We're still in New York. Where do I go? And there's a Marine Corps on site. Not that he doesn't look familiar to me either, might I add. So now that's confusing this school year, which is 2022. Then I'm looking at the grid, because my son comes home and he goes, Mom, he goes, my son's birthday is the 15th, and so, and he's the king that I recognize, Mark King, but there's a Mark King from my youth that if he was to have a son with me, it would look like Cat Scratch 1 through 4, whatever, nobody's business. But genetically, we would be brethren. But my son tells me they're not celebrating his name or Alexander James's name. They're celebrating something called a Martin Luther King Jr. But my son doesn't say Jr. now, being in the school that is in illegal action because it doesn't have a flag flying of the current President of the United States, Joe Biden's unity flag that he was elected under or is running the world under, or the world over here under. So it gets confusing how the locals are able to conduct themselves in this manner. And on this North American calendar system, they're not celebrating the New Amsterdam king. It looks like they're celebrating some like new Afghanistan king, which looks very much like this guy that they shot the season before I got here. His name's Martin Luther King. It's on the 17th. The 15th is... where's the 15th? There's the 15th, and then look at that 16th, and then they're celebrating some other, and they call him a king. Now, that's confusing because in order to be called a king, there has to be some kind of special allowance. They did murder the man before I got here. I had nothing to do with it, but I've heard my entire life that he was murdered or assassinated or whatever. No idea. Around the same time, they also murdered a New Amsterdam man by the name of John F. Kennedy. He was a seated, though, U.S. president. Did not call himself a king, but did call himself a United States of America elected president, no less. And he was also for the Democratic Party. So now on this grid system with this false king that they're putting a holiday and they're actually letting the children out of school for, this is a printed publication from something I thought my grandfather was a part of and was a safe whatever. But apparently in the year 2022, it's one of those things I no longer can find faith in, being the flag or the foundation, because they're making all sorts of they're making false claims. That's their two flags. They're making all sorts of false claims, and now they're all entangled with one another for promoting a false king. And I don't know how they got away with that in branding and marketing and publication. I mean, there still is a South Dakota with a silver color rock. There's a state. There's a national monument to 4 founder presidents linked into our treasury and our monetary system, which is the most important thing to protect for the family, the silver-colored family, which has domestic interior fiduciary and then has some family relations elsewhere for planetary brethren and brotherhood of importance. So now that anchor in reality is solidified, and I can still see there's importance. When I arrived, there were some symbols. The humans have talked about it. They've televised it. I've tried to pay as much respect and attention as possible, but in a synopsis, in an opioid crisis, no less. Alexa, off. In an opioid crisis, that now some whatever lawyer wants to ruin my dignity, my reputation, my family's reputation. They wanted to rip myself from my children, which they actually accomplished, and make sure I lost my housing, and make sure that I am as uncomfortable as possible. And now I have medical disease, and now I've been thrown into prison once and then I've been thrown in a psychologically damaging, like Nuremberg trial. These people that made it onto national calendar, not the Italians, but the false king, it's a problem on so many lights because the king that they're promoting does not match the land security force or task force or special whatever. And the arriving of this false king also brought with it an opioid crisis, some drug trafficking problems, and then some migrationary issues with, if I was an interior designer and I worked for the New Amsterdam king, who looked more like John F. Kennedy. And that's what I was interior decorating my land allowance territory with. And then all of a sudden, someone put on the calendar a false king, and it was under the Martin Luther Episcopal or Protestant teaching that I learned. It was under Protestant, which is protest ant. So they're the protesters and the anarchists, as far as I'm concerned. They're the ones trying to harm the family. But, so it's protest ants, and they came up with this new religion called, and Martin Luther was the person in charge. Now, when they taught it, they didn't teach it with a familial reference. I just assumed, because they said that it had something to do with the Church of England, that these protesters were brethren and the correct family akinment. However, I've come to learn by the North American news, that the Martin Luther in this area, I don't know about the UK area, but in the US area, is of a completely different ancestry, a different lineage, different bloodline, and is a direct threat to the family that was expecting the interior design to come out the way that they had expected. So now at that level of insecurity and help needed and help wanted, where does one post a concern to the other family members? Since I don't know how to get to the colonists that I grew up with or grew up around, they seem to have just disappeared after elementary school, or some of them even during elementary school, and some of them after or during high school, and then it's been a real hit or miss with all of the changing headlines and nothingness while they've held me here and out of the correct alignment with the one person that I was built for. My father, when he was born in Italy, was proclaimed a prince. They said he was a prince bloodline. The Italians know. What I don't understand is why the sons of Italy in the United States of North America have twisted and contorted the story so violently that now it's become some form of a dispute or a problem that nobody talks about. And yet it's still on a 2022 calendar celebration of the wrong family, even though by land, like recon, if someone was to drive to South Dakota and the Black Hills, they would see silver quartz looking monument of Treasury approved fronts and profiles of the original investors and foundations of Constitution and Bill of Rights and a monetary system and a U.S. governance. So it's a little upsetting that I've been treated so horribly and viciously on these lands. And I don't know how to alert family members and do it the appropriate way without triggering some other offset investor or motions or global or planetary, because I also have cosmological and astrological alignment issues, which I don't know what area that's handled by. But I don't know if there's cross problems in or cross thatching of investors and actions that others have taken that are now plaguing the system and making it harder. It honestly feels by the illegal king that got on the January calendar holiday schedule, it really feels like a blitzkrieg of the people. And I don't know why because I'm so unclear when all the signs point to the family running the operation being of one very clear look and lineage, how the false king has pushed so much of their false narrative and whatever into certain states in the lower 48. I mean, I'm very confused. This is a very confusing time just based on the mental, like, there's been so much withholding and neglect of what is needed for family safety. I mean, it's a war beyond wars. It's not even at a Star Wars level. That's one thread of it, but it's the Great War, and almost like the Great War Beyond. I know that there's the Great King from Beyond is what I call my New Amsterdam King, or my Mark King, my Special Task Force Mark. I don't know how to protect myself here. I don't. I'm not the only family member on the field, but I don't know what happened to the world while I was waiting for you to come back to marry me. And I know my plight and where I was forced between them piercing the veil and forcing me through certain wormhole situations into a completely different script than I was originally built for. But I don't even know how to align those quirk pieces in some CERN concerned kaleidoscope of broken glass that is now infected by scientific method and the allowance of listening to some of the false king's children in the great beyond that I think should lose their medical license minimum and their ability to practice, and then their ability to receive medical care for certain. Star 1978, Star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It is Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. And it is Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.